That was 10 seconds of animation that took me probably a week to render. The scene was to really practice the use of texture from images translated into 3D. I was trying to match every sound of it and make it seem like layers. All those scenes that you see, it's like a new character with a new skeleton. What's up guys? Today we're going to react to some of my old 3D animation. It was my favorite era of my development. Learning 3D animation was such an amazing skill that impacted me until today. One thing that I really miss is that you could really create whatever world you wanted. My whole imagination was like I was like a kid basically. My man got some moves. Hey. I can't believe that was my first animation. That's so funny. That was my favorite part. That was so smooth. A 3D experiment. So that was the first animation that I've actually done. I had absolutely no knowledge on how to master the camera, but I was starting to discover keyframing and how I could really put a lot of scenes and camera movement in the same environment and then build scene by scene, just like in filmmaking basically. This character is from a website called Maximo I think, and they give you free characters and free skeletons where you can attach the character to the skeleton, and that skeleton has an animation like preset given with the skeleton, so your character would do the movement that's on the preset of the skeleton. After I discovered that I could make a character dance for fun, this is where like it became such a fun process because I was just building random scenes, and as I was discovering this, I also discovered how to make like the floor reflective, like here, but a little more like matte, so it's not like as reflective. But then after that I was like, yo, that would be so cool if there's like a crystal in the back and it's moving as he's dancing. All those scenes that you see, it's like a new character with a new skeleton. It's the same character basically, but it's just that this animation preset is different. So what I would do is simply delete the character and the skeleton, put the new animation preset with the same character. It would help me build new scenes basically. His suit is so reflective, and that was on purpose. Like it was not just the character being built like me, like that. Built like me, what the fuck? So I don't know what was with me, but I really loved reflections. When I discovered reflections on 3D animation, it was like a caveman discovering fire. I was like, oh!
Ooh, me make light from stick.
Everything was purposely reflective. The crystal in the back, the lighting, the floor, the character, even the back. The back, if you look at it carefully, it is like a mirror with like some yellow line. I think I did this scene within a few days just because I had nothing else to do during COVID. I had nothing to do except from learning. I'm the type of guy that if I get bored, I'm gonna learn a shit ton of stuff. Another thing that I really loved from this thing is when I started to understand how I could play with the camera, you can see that there's some scenes that are really my style. For example, this scene right here. This is really my style. I love that. And then the camera starts following the guy. I could have added more bezier on the movement, but at that time I didn't even know how to create that on my keyframes. That was definitely my favorite scene right here. That's my highlight. Ooh, so cool. Yeah, even that actually, that's so cool. I miss doing 3D. It gets me so excited now.
What the fuck is that?
All right, that was super short. It is a very simple animation. and there's nothing happening except from like a heartbeat type of I don't know what it is. I know it was probably not really obvious for most of you guys, but this was inspired by Arrival from Denis Villeneuve. When humans enter for the first time into the spaceship that was just floating all around Earth, and then they entered this like tunnel that became a big room, and then eventually the aliens revealed themselves. So the inspiration was really just like the tunnel. I obviously added more like my own taste with lights that was a little too bright. The reason why it was the most important project for me is that I used a lot more sound effects on this video, and it's very subtle. Like you won't really realize how many different sounds there is, but there was many, and I was trying to match like each element of the of I don't know what this is, the alien egg. It looks like an egg, actually. I was trying to match every sound of it and make it seem like layers of sounds representing the visuals, basically. And that was it, honestly. I was also playing with, again, more reflective stuff, but also details, like what this is. I don't know how I did that. Those were like kind of rings that I created with some displacement and subdivision in Blender. I'm getting rusty in 3D, so I need to get back to it. Now, this was the first time I used sound effects in a 3D animation. Now I'm going to show you the second one, where to me, I think this got even better. That was 10 seconds of animation that took me probably a week to render. And it was just one scene. For most of you guys, it was probably not even clear to watch. But the intention of this scene was really to be in the middle of an action scene between two characters fighting. And it really had even like a concept behind it. This project was called Kengan 3030. That was in a time where, again, during pandemic, I was watching a lot of Netflix and I discovered this series called Kengan Ashura. And I really loved the story, and like the action was just so intense. It was so fun and entertaining. So at some point I was just like, I discovered this random character, this like super soldier from the future, and I was like, yo, that would be so fun if we have two of those characters fighting each other, both different colors, and the story is just in a temple. One fighter decides to desert and ends up fighting one of his comrades. And I added a little too much blurred in the camera motion, so that's why we don't really see clearly what's happening. But when you pause, you realize that it's actually two characters fighting. This is where I added not only like a style of music, there was a backstory, there was a title, and I didn't care if it wasn't like really understandable right away. I feel like when you see the end, you understand that it's two guys fighting. And if you pause, for example, this pause, I really love it because it's as if we really take the time to react to the skip of the other punch, and the character is just like, oh, and then he's about to like punch him again, and then you go between them again, poof, a kick, that's it. It's probably a little complex to explain like that, even for me. I know what was going on in my mind, and I know it might not be as comprehensible to everyone. I added so many sound effects, like each hit on this animation was calculated, and I had to find a specific sound. For example, the kick was not the same sound as a punch, and I had to add voice too because I wanted to feel like like martial art scene. So it was really like and this is why we hear them. I could have added more like digital effect on the voices since they're like soldiers from the future, but yeah, at that time I didn't want to make it even more complex and difficult for me as I was discovering how to master sound effects. Next one is the most important project of my life, of my career as a filmmaker, because after just maybe 4 months of discovering, learning, and trying things in 3D, I decided that I was going to make a short film. Damn, the pixels, man. I love that scene. The details, man. Oof. It was so random, but yeah. The glitches. Damn. This short film meant so much for me. As much as it was such a beginner type of animation, there was not really any. There was a story, but it was not a story being told. It was just more abstract and a linear story. This short film took me 5 months to produce. Some scenes in this project took like 2 weeks to render. Just one scene of like 10 to 30 seconds. And I remember at that time, I would go to a chalet while letting the computer render. It was such a hard development and such a long process and like a learning process. It was a really long learning process. And I think the concept was pretty cool. The story was the process of rebirth, and it starts with one man or just one entity. Basically, it wasn't necessarily to be a man. It's just that my character was like a masculine man. It was also inspired by one character that I really love, and it was Dr. Manhattan. I really love this character because the backstory of this character in the movie The Watchmen impacted me so much. The loneliness, the long monologue, the drama in his voice, the heaviness of his solitude, basically. Even until now, I still rewatch this movie. I even bought it on Amazon Prime just to rewatch it and feel it again, because that heaviness that character was expressing it's gonna sound depressing, but I feel it a lot. In moments of loneliness or in moments where I reflect on myself, I feel it a lot. So I decided to make a story out of it. Concept is just the rebirth of an entity, a human being, but this time fused with technology. And this is why you see in the first scene, this is the character, like the final form of the character in the first scene. And it's like, as you can see, it has the same texture as the background. And I'm going to show you guys after a picture where the render was way more high quality. It's just that on video, I don't know why. I think it's because the type of render that I selected, the settings, it made the animation a little more pixelated. So this was like his final form, and you can see that he's fused with his environment. And then when it goes to here, this is like the character ends up being like, we go back to the past where he's reborn, how he's created. So this first scene was called the temple. There's like little representation. For example, those little red lights, they're just like crystals with like a ball of red light. I don't know why I created this. I just wanted to add some depth and some colors into this unified scenes. There's a tree, just like the tree of life in the Bible or any like form of creation, human creation history. There's always a tree in the story. So naturally, I had to add a tree. You don't know where he comes from, but an entity will appear from there. But this scene was to really practice the use of texture from images translated into 3D. What I love in this scene, this is also inspired by Arrival again, where you just see like a silhouette appearing behind a kind of like foggy glass. This scene right here is random as fuck. There's no story linked to the short film. It's just I had a gap And at some point, I was getting sick and tired of producing so many long rendering scenes, so I just had to fill the gap with something else. So this I have no link with the whole story, but you could say that this is like, I don't know, death or whatever. Here it's more like the representation of humans and the texture moving around. This was just a test. I was trying to see like how it would look. And as much as it doesn't really match with the rest of the movie, the quality of this one, I think this one was in 4K, and the quality of the movement on the texture was so amazing that I had to put it in the short film just for the sake of flexing the quality of this one because it worked so well. Then this is where we go back to the story. So like there's little gaps in the short film, then there's like the story, the actual story coming in. So this scene is called The Lab. And as you can see right here, left and right, there's basically a DNA representation. I know it's probably not accurate, but just for fun, I wanted to put it there so that people might have like a link and understanding of like what it is. And as you can see right here, there's a man standing, like being hanged from something weird right here. And there's two big arms moving around him. And this is why it's called The Lab. Those are like basically, I don't know, they're probably scanning or making some final test. Because like I said, this is the fusion between man and technology. It's the new humans. This is why it's called actually neo-anthros, because neo means new from the old Greek. And also anthro comes from the word anthro something. I'll put it on the video. But it means human. So new human, that's the title. As you can see in details here, I really love the texture that I've added on this part right here with the lighting. The lighting is amazing. But these arms were like a little too smooth. And the funny part, little detail right here, probably no one will actually notice it. But this arm on the right goes through the third one that's just hanging the human. It goes through the arm. That was a little detail that I didn't pay attention to. But apart from that, I think the rest of the scene was pretty cool, like this whole entrance and the detail on the human. Once again, really looks like Dr. Manhattan. That was the intention. It had to look like him. And right now he's just not really fused. Now this scene is called Rebirth because this is where after the scanning, after the fusing with the technologies, this is where the human, the final form of this entity, this new entity will come out. And as you can see now, he's a different color. And he's even like a little transparent. And as much as I wished, I was trying to make this movement on his body a little slower. I don't know what I did, but I wasn't able to fix that. So I ended up just leaving it like that. Had no choice. I think the intention was there. It was really to show just the human form appearing and looking completely different, you know. And then from there, this is where at some point I was just telling myself, this short film takes me so much time. I don't think I'm able to create more scenes. I was getting out of ideas. So what I did is the music that you heard in this composition is from one of my friends. What I did is I built those first scenes with the character mainly, such as the temple, the lab, and the rebirth. I sent it to my friend and I told him, look at those scenes. Here's the concept. Here's the name. I want you to compose a full-on music that's going to go from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. And I want a music that's going to be inspired by Tron Legacy. I think it was also Hans Zimmerman, some stuff like that. And then third inspiration. I told him, look into those kind of music, build something from it. And what I want you to do now is look at those scenes, produce the composition. And from your composition, I'm going to fill up the gap with my own scenes that's going to represent your music. So it was really like a fusion of music composition with the visuals. So it wasn't anymore just my story of this character and this concept. It was also the story behind music. Once the human, the final form is created and he's out, I think I'm just gonna add some of my abstract ideas that will represent also the fusion of flesh and technology together. And it gave me the idea of like creating a bunch of abstract animation that are representative of cells, such as this one. This is a fractal animation. It starts with a cube and then you make a mathematic formula and it becomes like this. Then here, this is more like technology, so like electricity, more like wire, holograms, stuff like that. This scene, I was trying to do something greater, but I was kind of out of time at some point. I just created this scene to kind of represent fire. What's cool from this short film is that a year later, an event that goes around Canada contacted me to participate into their like event in Montreal, and they asked me to get a booth with them, and I would have to sell tickets. And if I sell enough tickets, it would be free for me for my booth, and I'd be able to present my short film on the big screen. So I did, and I showed it in front of like hundreds of people, and I had a lot of friends and family that came to support. It was such a crazy time because I was at my brokest ever in my life, and yet I ended up doing it. That's a huge thanks to my girlfriend, because she's the one that told me, you should do it. Even though you don't have the money, you should do it, and you should trust the process of selling all those tickets so it becomes free for you. And as much as I wasn't really believing it, I trusted her blindly, and I did it. It makes me emotional when I watch those things. This was months later after Neo Intro, where I was trying to build more cinematic stories in 3D. And as a huge lover of sci-fi, I was looking into this platform called CG Trader, and I found this spaceship for very cheap. It's like a spaceship model that you can download and use into your 3D software. And I was like, yo, that would be so cool if this spaceship is like floating around looking with a light for something. And it kind of reminded me of Terminator, but also Halo. So I tried it. And the project was just building a scene that represents a moment of a bigger story, such as the spaceship is looking for something. And then as you see the spaceship entering the frame, at some point it switches and it's the main character, which at that time, I don't know why I decided to get kind of a devil looking like character. I would have probably changed for something way better now, but at the time that was a character. And as we see it appear, he stands up as like ready for combat. Kind of looks weird because his legs was going through the floor, and the floor was not actual sand. It was just like a surface that I added some displacement. Yeah, I never mastered physics or simulation at the time, just because it cost so much in power and performance of your computer. And my computer, as much as it was good, it was not that good. So I was limited. It would make my computer go really hot. And I remember during winter, I could close the heaters and just leave the computer render all day, because it was rendering scenes every day, and it would heat up my room. In this scene, what I really loved is how I composed every little details. I added like a monolith in the composition, and the way the spaceships appears with a silhouette, and you see kind of like the beginning of a sunrise, a very slow sunrise. I loved it. Like here we see the sun and it's really dimmed. There's a lot of grain. That's because I was trying to make sure that we can actually see the light move in the environment, but it made the whole thing kind of grainy, but it still worked. That was cool. We see the monolith, we see the sand, and then we can see the clouds. That's another thing that I was trying to do, is add more environment effect, and I think I nailed it on this one. It was really simple, and once again I was kind of limited. And small detail from this title, the title, Banished, the texture of the title is basically the skin of the main character. This is kind of demonic, and I would not do that again, but I don't know what came to my mind, but it kind of really nailed the aesthetic. Like it really works. My favorite part from this composition and this scene is that it really sold the scale of the ship, just from how it starts out of frame because it's so big, and the way it moves, it's super slow, so it really sells the huge presence that it has.